Hey, our mateys. Hey, we'd like to give you a tour of our tiny house. And first of all, I'll go over some of the basics of it, and then we'll take the tour. Well, first of all, as a general disclaimer, any of the products I mention in this, some of the things that we have, I don't work for these people. I'm not an employee. I don't get a commission if you buy anything, if you buy any of this stuff. Now I do have a Amazon affiliate account. If you buy through that, of course, I get a small commission. But this is in no way a sales pitch for any of the products, just to get that out of the way. Let's start with the basics of the tiny house. It floats. That's a good thing because it's a sailboat. We're on a 1975 Bahama Islander. It's 30 foot long. It's got a 10-foot beam or 10-foot wide. The draft is 5 feet. The keel goes down 5 feet. Our air draft is 48 foot. So any bridges under 48 feet, we can't get through them. We're powered by, of course, the main and the jib, or Genoa, 150% Genoa, and a 16 horsepower, 1999 two-cylinder Yanmar diesel engine. It has tiller steering, which I didn't think I was going to like tiller, but I really like it. It's very reactive. You can feel what's going on. When I got the boat, it had an old tiller on it. It snapped on me one time out in heavy seas. I had to lash it together. But I got a new tiller from anytiller.com. This thing is like, it's a piece of artwork. These guys hand make them. They even cut their own wood. It's really a beautiful tiller. Very substantial and sturdy. And of course, one of the other things I like about the tiller, there's no cables, there's no cams. I mean, it's direct drive to the rudder. You know what's going on, and there's a lot less things to break on it. A couple of the things that I did, we'll take a tour. We're going to start from the inside and move our way out to the deck instead of starting on top of the boat, because I think the inside is a little bit more interesting. We did put plastic and plastique down. It's an engineered flooring covering. I've had it now for 5 years. It's held up great, and it looks really good too. For navigation, of course, I have a VHF that can receive AIS and display it on my chart plotter. And my chart plotter also has my depth sounder in it, but for the most part, I use NV Charts and their app on my tablet for navigation, and I use the chart plotter as a backup instead of the other way around. Well, let's go on in and start a tour of our tiny house. Well, we'll start the inside with the V-berth. Pretty self-explanatory as to what it is. The hatch you see at the end, or actually the front of it, goes into the anchor locker. Along the sides, I built those shelves in. There was nothing there. And then you can see I also use netting to hold my clothes. So that's kind of my closet there, or dresser. Now from inside the V-berth, I've got my sewing machine and sewing supplies on the side. And where the sewing machine is sitting, underneath there is a small hanging locker. The same is on the port side, which we'll swing around here. And there I have my humidor for the cigars and a few other storage items. And then underneath the V-berth, I put a little shelf to step up on, or I should call it a step. And I keep my shoes underneath there, the dirty laundry, vacuum cleaner. And on the starboard side, I put a access hatch into the compartment underneath there, so I don't have to pull up the mattresses to get into that. From there, the next area is the head, and unfortunately I don't have a shower on board. I'm not sure how I would put one in either, but we did upgrade the sink. We have a top mount sink, and the faucet can be lifted up, you know, to be used as a shower. My issue is, where do I drain it to without just running it down into the bilge, which I really don't want to do. I don't have a deep area where I could set a bilge pump, and might be able to run a hose, but I'd still have to build some kind of a pan to hold everything. But you can see there's plenty of storage here. Now on the other side, Sherry keeps a lot of her stuff, her important hair supplies and some other things. We have a little book rack here. But more importantly, what we did is we took out the regular head and we put a composting toilet in, and it's ventless. It doesn't need a vent. Now we've been using it for 2 years with no problems. And we don't put toilet paper in there. That would just fill it up too quickly. So we just have a little bag on the side here that we use. We dump it daily. And then there were a couple of doors in here, but it was so crowded when you have the doors. So instead, I put this curtain up. It's too crowded. So Sherry's going to demonstrate for you how our how our curtain works. Then you have some privacy. Well, we'll start with the port side, and this is where the galley is. We'll come back to that in just a minute. But along here, see, there's a little bench. I've got a shelf that goes up and down that you can set down. And again, I built these shelves across the top there, and we have a charging station for all of our electronics. And then the baskets, instead of putting doors up, we're just using baskets for storage. Now we also have a flat screen TV, and what we do with that is we hook up our HDMI cord from the laptop to the TV to watch TV. Now coming around to the starboard is where the table would fold up. There's a clock there. And we have a digital picture frame, so we feel at home with seeing the grandchildren and all the pictures. Got a little rack there for our charts, the NV charts. We've got a thermocell for mosquitoes, a printer, and continuing around to starboard, the little brown panel there with the 2 vents. The bigger brown one is for our reverse cycle heat and air conditioning. Then the little black one is for the diesel heater. Now I have a ductwork running forward to the V-berth for the HVAC reverse cycle. I don't have one for the diesel heat. It's only this one, and there's one other vent for that. Again, I built this shelf in. Wasn't there before. We're using baskets for storage. And we continue to come around, and here's our a little wine rack, our microwave, and that's the other ductwork for the diesel heater. I'm going to just keep swinging around here. This area here, inside this, is where we do have some food storage, but mostly it's taken up by the HVAC unit. So this unit mainly houses the HVAC unit down here. We have a little room for some food storage, and then I have a quick access tool panel here, or tool belt. So continuing along, we get to the quarter berth, and over the top of that is where our electric panels are, AC and DC panels, the VHF radio, and this really has become Sherry's closet. All right, so Sherry, that's your closet, your wardrobe. Tell everybody about it.
Yeah, it's very hard to move around in there, and so everything I have to get is a struggle.
It's not that hard.
Yes, it is.
But you have everything you need in there, right?
I bump my head on the ceiling.
Well, that happens. That happens. Everything stays pretty dry in there, though.
Yeah, mostly everything. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Then we put the den dry on the floor and around the walls and everything, and that keeps it much drier.
So you were good with that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm good with the den dry.
Okay. All right, now, guys, let's move on to the galley. All right. So next to the second most important thing on the boat, besides the wine and liquor rack, is the galley. And here I put a new sink in, Ambassador sink, and the same in the head that's from Ambassador, and Ambassador faucets. These are marine grade pieces of equipment. As we swing around here, underneath this was an ice box. And we put a cool blue unit in with a cold plate, and really keeps things nice and cold. Doesn't use a lot of battery power. Underneath, this is our cooking utensil drawer. All along here, we got our blender over here. Alongside here is the silverware drawer. And then our propane stove, 3-burner with an oven. It's a Mermaid. They don't make these anymore, but it's a good stove. It really works well. We hardly use any propane. And then storage behind here. Oh, I got a few goods out getting ready for dinner here. We use the hanging bags for onions and apples. It's a little spice cabinet I put in here. And I think that kind of takes us through most of the boat. Oh, one more thing here in the galley. When we put our Renogy solar panels up, I needed some place to put the controller. We have a 60 amp controller. It's big because we're going to add more to it. This was really about the only spot I could find to fix that, or to mount it. And so that's there. The little box on top is a Bluetooth add-on that you can check what's going on with your solar panels through Bluetooth on your phone or tablet. And then we put in a couple of little dish racks, another little spice rack. And as I mentioned earlier, all of the lights in here are LED. So when you come down the companionway, that first little step you see, that's attached to the board that covers the, or access to the engine room. Then next, where the autopilot and the tomato juice is sitting, underneath that is our battery banks, and we're going to make that a little bit bigger so we can increase our battery power. Alright guys, let's finish our tour, coming up from the main cabin into the cockpit area. Well, we'll start by swinging to starboard. And here I have my compass. I keep it covered to help protect it. So one time I'm out sailing and I'm looking at the compass and I'm thinking, wow, I'm really off course. What is going on here? Well, what had happened is I have my chair, I'm sitting here relaxing, but watch this. That moves almost 10 degrees. This chair has got metal in it. Problem solved. Just keep the chair out of the way. Now, I don't have self-tailing winches. Here, I really don't need one for the jib. But for the sheets, although it's not self-tailing, it does work sort of like one in that it has this rubber cover on it. It looks like I'm going to need a new one pretty soon. And this works really well, so you don't have to cleat things off. As you tighten up, you get there, just need to pull this, and it keeps it in place. It's a lot easier than having to cleat and uncleat things. So I'm very happy with those. So continuing around to the stern is my radar arch. And for my fuel, when I need to refuel, rather than use the jerry can and pick it up and try to put the fuel in, sometimes that can be difficult. I have this hose with a shake valve that fits down in there, and you just kind of shake it and it starts coming up and it siphons all the way into the tank. Empties the jerry can. And now on the solar panel arch, I mean, I got a couple benefits out of this. I mean, I can store things on it. I have a sun and wind shade. I have fishing rod holders. I put some netting up there to store a few things in. Now you don't want to put a whole lot in there because you want to leave airspace for the solar panels. Now I have tiller steering, which I'm fine with. I like it. I have an autopilot, Simrad autopilot, that hooks up to my chart plotter and can follow a course, or whatever course you're on, you just hit standby. You'll stay on that. You need to tack. Oh, I have to have it in here. And if we were underway, it would go back, well, it just went a little bit, but it would go back and put you on a pretty reasonable track as to where you want to head. It'll straighten the boat back out instead of just going around in circles. This, oh wait a minute, you got to stop that. Oh. There we go, and then we're back on track again. Not moving, it's not going to be real accurate, but that is a great function. Then last year I was looking at my electrical, and my outlets had real problems. So I switched over to Smart Plug, and I'm really happy I did. I mean, these things, they just stay secure. You know, and in the cockpit when you're moving around and stuff, sometimes you knock things or you're tightening a line. You get over there, you wind up moving something, and the twist ones just really don't stay locked that well. Unfortunately, you still have to use the twist on the pier, but then as we keep coming around now to port, that's my propane locker. Now let's take a look at the dreaded Lazaret. Now I call it the dreaded Lazaret because you never know for sure what you're going to find in there. This one happens to be in pretty good shape right now, and I keep cord here. I don't have hydraulic hinges on it, but I put this on just so it doesn't fall down on me. Well, let's take a look on what's inside. Well, there's my compressor for my refrigeration, a cool blue unit. I fiberglassed that in. Those cables you see running across the back are for the Renogy solar panels. Then I also put a couple of shelves in to hold some tools. Oh, that helmet is for a GoPro camera. So here where the Power Mania battery charger is, what I want to do is clean all that out, move a few things around, and put my inverter in there. Here's the engine fresh water or raw water strainer. And the other thing in here is that this also is access to some of the engine. And I have my water heater back here. But yeah, it gives you a little bit of access. And talking about engine room access, in addition to the Lazaret, there's access in the main cabin. However, when they put the new engine in, there was barely enough room to get everything to fit. So I put this access panel in to get to the engine, because it was almost impossible to add oil or check or add antifreeze to the coolant here. Plus, when I am working on the engine, I can open this and have a little more light. I can reach some of the parts from in here a lot easier. I can check the feed lines. It's just a lot more convenient. Now, the one thing I wish I had done is get a more sturdy access panel. And you see, I've had to reinforce that. I need to switch this out to some kind of a metal or some other access panel. So if you guys have any recommendations, I'd love to hear them. Also, the boat did not have a working fuel gauge. I mean, none of the gauges worked. So I went for quite a few years without a fuel gauge. Now I've got a fuel gauge, and what I did is, because it's an irregular tank, I had to, as I emptied the tank totally. Then I put a gallon in at a time until I got a little bit above empty. Then I started adding 5 gallons at a time, and at each 5 gallons I marked where I was. Because of the irregular tank, this showing half a tank is not really half a tank. It's a lot less than that. So if you add a fuel gauge, make sure that you kind of try to calibrate it some way. And you know, on most of us sailboaters, I mean, I've only got a 30-gallon tank. It's not that hard to siphon it all out and start over, so you really know what you have. So of course, on the solar panel arch, I have solar panels. I have 4 100-watt systems from Renogy. And then on the back stay going up, you'll see this little antenna type of thing. Well, that's an Alpha Network Wi-Fi extender, and it really makes the Wi-Fi at the marina much better. Now here at North Point, the Wi-Fi is pretty darn good, so it really flies with this thing. All right, mateys, now let's take a look at the outside of the boat on the deck. Well, I've got a Fortress anchor that I use. The boat didn't come with a anchor roller, so I put one on, Kingston anchor, and that just makes it so much easier, first of all, just to store the darn thing, and then to drop anchor and to lift anchor, much better. I have a Harkin roller furler for the jib, and then to fill the fresh water tank with water, I had to run a hose down through the boat. Well, I added a deck fill plate, made it much more convenient. And then next to that is my whisker pole, and I installed an extra halyard for the main, which is on the starboard side, just in case. And then here is my halyard for the whisker pole. And that, my friends, is our basic tiny home that floats. So until next time, happy and safe boating to you, your family, and friends.